I don't know about that. Where's my gin? No, okay. I can't say that. Nanti kena pejabat agama. Okay, we're live now, yeah? Welcome to Penang. Welcome to Georgetown. Welcome to the Blue Room, but we're actually upstairs from the Blue Room because it's full. After the lockdown, all restaurants have been allowed to open. And so we've lost our favorite table. So now we're hosting you upstairs from the Blue Room. I didn't want to host it somewhere else. Okay, I'd like to welcome Gavin Quinn from Ireland, who worked with us on a project called All That Fall, which, like I said earlier, I saw it online, I read about it, and it looked fabulous. And then we brought it in, and he had to stage it in the Majestic Theatre, which wasn't really a theatre, but he did a really good job and something that I've always remembered. And so we welcome him back today, Gavin. And then we have Jaber Ramezani with his partner in crime, translator, Mohsen. Jaber, again, the same thing. I actually saw an image of Slow Sound of Snow. And I read about it being performed in Rome, and I thought, wow, what a stunning image. And then when I read what it was all about, was when I thought, oh, I must have this. So we've brought Jaber and Hole in the Wall twice to Penang, one in Slow Sound of Snow in 2016. And in 2018, we brought in the We Cannot Talk About It. So welcome, Jaber and Mohsen. And then Razif.
Thank you.
Okay, this one I have to read because I saw this, I thought, wow. An entertainer who has knowledge and experience to survive as a freelancer. I thought that was the line that got me, you know. Razif came to Penang with a Singapore-Malaysian production of Pearl of the Eastern Oriental, directed by Lim Yu Beng and produced by Tan Keng Hua. And when he played a part of simulated Tunku Abdul Rahman. And it was a really beautiful setting. And a shout out to Shireen, who says that's her favorite character from the whole play, Razif. I don't know whether you know Shireen. Yeah. So, and then I've also worked with Razif, and he, throughout the years, I think he's actually, as a TV host, he's used his talent not only to survive as a freelancer, but he's helped a lot of entrepreneurs through magic, through, what's that Islamic association, Razif? What was the Islamic Council? No. How did we work the last time in Penang?
The World Islamic Economic Forum.
Yeah. I knew it was something Islamic, you know. Yeah, and that's when we caught up again. And with us tonight is Nia Shahro, who's part of a really very, very interesting initiative called Terang, which is the Masha Rangkaian, which is a festival of network. And they invited me I think in March or April when they first started. They've been connecting the rest, Malaysia with the rest of the world in the performing arts. It's a great bunch of young people who took the initiative to try to find how do we work these COVID times and how do we put things online and stay connected. And I do hope that their Terang grows. And I offered to be part of it because I really, really like the initiative. So tonight, she is co-hosting because she's prettier and cleverer. Yeah? Okay, we'll start with, you want to start, Anya, to ask the first question?
Yeah, if you would let me, I would like to ask Gavin about how do you feel about living post-COVID, or how are you basically?
Yeah.
Well, I'm well. It's been obviously a very interesting time for everyone. I had to start my year by going to China, which was quite a strange time to go. I was in China in December and January to try and put together a production of The Playboy of the Western World, which is a famous Irish play, which we did an adaptation with the Chinese writer called Sun Ye. And our idea was to remount this production, which we did 15 years ago, and then to stream it in Chinese cinemas. But then COVID struck, and I had this strange experience of walking around Beijing, where normally there's 12 lanes of traffic, and there was no cars, and me just sort of walking around Beijing by myself wearing a mask. So my year started off very strangely, and then I came back to Ireland, not thinking in a million years that the COVID would spread so much. So then suddenly it sort of, it obviously hit worldwide, it hit Ireland, and it was been a very strange experience. At the same time though, the kind of pause that created, it's very unusual. If you're busy in your career, it's unusual to get this break. And I found it quite interesting at the same time, as well as all the, obviously the sadness over people dying and the worry of people getting sick. But there was something kind of, it reminded me of like living in Ireland in the 1970s when people used to play in their back gardens and nobody really went shopping because no one really had any money. And there was something very nice about walking around Dublin in the empty streets, like a ghost town. And I found that really interesting for the imagination. But obviously, now the situation is that I think we're at the strange part of the COVID where we're trying to plan things and then we're unplanning things and then we're producing things and we're canceling things. So everything now is these tiny baby steps. So now is a really interesting time, I think, creatively as to what the solutions will be.
That's
Listening to
interesting.
that, it sounds like it's from a movie, but it's real life.
Exactly, yes.
Interesting, because most of the people that we've talked to the last 2 weeks have said the same thing. It's given them that time that they've never ever had because of their busy life. So Jaber, where have you been this last 3 months? What have you been feeling? Were there fears, anxiety? Were you trapped in a house or were you trapped in a palace in Tehran?
First, I would like to thank to Joey and all of the friends and all of the members watching this live. And I want to say I prefer to talk the Farsi and translated by dear friend Mohsen. So let me talk in Persian. در واقع من همیشه قبل از این ماجرا هم توی خونه کار میکردم و بعد از این هم همچنان توی خونه موندم چون خونه من دفتر کارم هم هست.
Jaber always works at home. During the COVID lockdown, he stayed at home as well, and he keeps the same routine after the COVID. He will do that because it is his workplace.
وقتی شما مجبور هستید تو خونه بمونید و وقتی که انتخاب خودتونه که تو خونه بمونید خیلی فرق میکنه.
But when you have to stay at home and it is not your choice, it makes a huge difference.
من فکر می‌کنم که توی این مدت زمان به این فکر می‌کردم که چقدر از معنای واژه‌ها در حال تغییر هستن.
During this time, the time of isolation, I was thinking about how the meaning of words changed.
واژه‌هایی مثل تنهایی، مثل عشق، مثل افسردگی، مثل مفید بودن.
Words like what was it? کلمه آخر چی بود جابر؟
تنهایی، عشق،
loneliness, love, depression,
مفید بودن،
usefulness.
همه این معنای این واژه‌ها تا قبل از این داستان قرنطینه و بعدشون دستخوش تغییر دارن میشن.
The meaning and the significance of these words are just changing over the time of the strike of COVID.
این اختلالی که در واقع توی زندگی عادی ما به وجود اومده.
This interruption which was made into our lives.
شبیه میتونه برای ما در واقع برای آرتیست ها به عنوان یک کلاس خلاق باشه.
It can be like this interruption can be like a creative workshop for we as artists.
ما در واقع توی کلاس هامون با مواجه شدن با چیزهای پیش بینی نشده، تصادف و اساساً بداهه پردازی ها رو آموزش دیدیم.
In our workshops and classes, we learned how to face the accidents and uncommon things and unprecedented events.
و بداهه پردازی.
And also improvisation.
به نظرم میرسه که در واقع این ویروس، من یه چیزای زیادی دارم از این ویروس مشاهده میکنم که وقتی به عنوان یه پارتنر به این ویروس نگاه میکنم چیزای زیادی برای یاد دادن به من داره.
When I look at this virus as a partner, it has lots of things to teach to me.
بسیار حرفه‌ایه.
This virus is very professional.
بسیار شجاعه.
Very brave.
That's a good way to look at it.
بسیار شجاعه و در واقع مستمر و قطع میکنه کارش رو و انسانیت عمیقی داره.
It is a deeply humanistic and this virus does not stop being the virus. He keeps doing continuously and consistently.
و یکی دیگه از چیزایی که این ویروس به من یاد داد، یک بار دیگه به من متذکر شد که هنر در برای دولت‌ها هیچ ارزشی نداره.
The other thing that this virus taught Jaber was that art is of no value for the governments.
به خاطر اینکه اونها در سراسر دنیا هیچ کمکی به آرتیست های مستقل نکردن و دارن انجام و نمی‌کنن و برنامه‌ای برای کمک به آرت ندارن.
Because they do not help and they do not have any plans to help independent artists worldwide.
در حال حاضر در تهران در واقع لیگ فوتبال راه افتاده و همه فوتبالیست‌ها برگشتن سر کارشون.
Right now, the football league is back on track, and all football players are just at their business and just working in Tehran.
تقریبا در واقع توی این وضعیت اسفناک و خطرناک به ما یک بار دیگه ثابت شده که به غیر از این که خودمون از همدیگه، ما همکاران و دوستان بتونیم از همدیگه عزم و اراده رو یاد بگیریم و در واقع اینها رو جبران بکنیم، راه دیگه‌ای وجود نداره.
Okay, unfortunately, we were taught again during this horrible time that we need to learn the might and will from each other, from the colleagues and from fellow artists.
Thank you. I think that's the reason why we are connecting, so that we can share experience. And I think this whole COVID thing has taught us how to think very differently. Yeah. So, yeah, you want to ask Razif next?
Yeah, Razif, how are you, Razif? We have to know how are you as well, because one thing that I also want to know is about mental health situations. I think when it started, when it hits us in Malaysia, nobody was ready for any change, and then suddenly we have to quickly adapt, and suddenly we have to survive. So how are you mentally as well?
Right, thank you so much for asking. Well, okay, so I guess I'm just going to take it a little bit back because it was a really tough time for me because I really needed change. I started a theater company called Wayang Kitchen in November 2019. We put up 2 plays and it was looking really good. We were planning for 3 plays. And just as we were about to launch our first one for 2020, COVID hit and everything went down. We had put in a lot of investments because we brought in people from the UK and you know, my director, God bless her, Hester, she had to be in KL for 4 whole months actually with absolutely nothing to do. It started affecting her, affected me, our other partners, but we came together and we were like, because we were so pumped up with all the energy that we were running 3 shows back to back, we were like, okay, let's do something. So basically what we did was we transferred our unique selling proposition from being on stage or in-present event online. So how we did that was we created shows that were pegged with food, because that's what we do. We sell food first and we sell art around the food. And so somehow or other we came up with something called Stay Home Entertainment. And we did that, and we managed to market it and sell it, and we helped restaurants, we helped local performers, we helped the guys who were delivering. But of course, because you know the economy was also bad, a lot of people cooking at home, it didn't have a massive uptake. So after we did 2 of those projects, I would say 60 days after the MCO started, that was when I crashed. So my mental health really started going down, down, down after day 60, and it was bad. Like I remember a day where I would say the day started and then it lasted for maybe about 2 weeks, where my mind's eye, my creative eye, cannot see anything. It was so blocked. I couldn't move. And then you start looking at everyone doing everything, and then you're asking yourself, what is it that's going on? And it went on like that for 2 weeks, and I think I was wallowing. And then I decided to pick up the phone and start calling people. And I was like, how are you guys doing? And it turns out, thank goodness, I wasn't the only one. Now, I wasn't, not that I'm praying that everybody else is, wallowing in the same sorrow, but I guess it's okay. It's just a little bit okay to know that, we're not alone, and I guess, when Joe, when you called and you said, hey, that's what you want to remind people. I think you said the right words, which was this pandemic, this disease, not just, took away our health, it broke our spirits. And I really felt that happen to me. So yeah, I would say I was stuck at home, the same as everybody else, trying my best to work things out. It felt a bit productive in the beginning, but it gets to you. It gets to you.
Well, I hope you're better now. I had a completely different experience. I was so charged up trying to pivot right from the day one, rethinking. Anyway, we go to the next question. I'll start with Gavin. Gavin, what is the industry? How has the industry been affected in Ireland? The theatre, the film. Let's talk theatre here. The theatre industry, like you mentioned earlier, that things have started to open, but not the theatres. So tell us about.
So it has affected. All the theaters are closed. Obviously, cinemas are closed. And what's happening now is people are trying to see what they can do. Obviously, the economic model has to change temporarily. So for larger venues, which are based on packing people in order to make a production work, that can't happen. So with social distancing, for example, I think the Abbey Theatre would hold about 48 people as against 500 people. So it isn't really an economic model that they can use. But for smaller work, like the Dublin Fringe Festival is going to go ahead and do 20 or so productions, or the Dublin Theatre Festival will do a couple of productions. People are trying to figure out ways of performing outdoors and making kind of some hybrid work that's semi-online, semi-live. So everyone's just trying to feel their way through. I think it's a good time for experimental work. It is a radical time, so maybe it's time for radical performance. So in that sense, it's kind of interesting. But in terms of it's very difficult for independent artists, for individual artists, individual actors, technicians, stage management, directors who work in the freelance part of things, because they just don't know what the future holds. So I think it could be a very long wait before things get back to normal, and if they get back to normal. And the big thing in all of this is whether the audience want to go out, whether the audience wants to go into theatres. I know that people have done kind of surveys and have tried to talk to people. Some people are a little bit anxious about going out. Other people are shielding kind of loved ones who might have underlying health issues. So at the moment, everyone is sort of scrambling to see what to do. But I think what most people are doing now, and what the Irish government is trying to do, and with the Arts Council, is trying to increase bursaries and commissions so that people can actually develop work for the future, so that they can spend time developing their practice. So it's kind of a period of hopefully of research that will make things easier when we get back. But so nothing is really happening. We have a couple of things which we're doing. One is an outdoor piece where everyone goes on a kind of group choreographed walk. We all move together, we have our own headphones, and we all wear costumes, and we go on a kind of 40-minute choreographed walk. And then we're also trying to make work audio projects for cinemas when they come back, so that you go into a cinema and you hear poetry. So we're working on this project. So the people are trying different ways to, rethink. As we discussed earlier, Joe, it's all about rethinking and trying to come up with creative solutions and treating it like was said earlier, like a period of workshop. Yeah. So it'll probably be next year before the main theatres are back, but there will be some work in the Dublin Fringe Festival. There will be various people trying to, take on the challenge, I guess. But it definitely has changed the landscape. It might change the landscape forever. Who knows?
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, we may be ready, but whether the audience are ready to come in. Yeah. Jaber, your mic is off, Jaber. Yeah, okay. What's your take on in Tehran with the theater industry?
در حال حاضر بعد از تعطیلی چند ماهه تئاتر، بعضی از تئاترها سعی کردن که با نیمی از ظرفیت سالناشون رو باز بکنن.
After some several months of lockdown, a few theaters has opened with half of the capacity.
اما مشخصا این پروژه بعد از یک ماه در واقع به نوعی میشه گفتش که به شکست خورد.
But after 1 month, it was an unsuccessful experience.
به خاطر اینکه به دلیل ضرری که در واقع تئاترها متحمل شدن لازم دارن که اتفاقا با بالاترین باجت و باکس آفیس خودشون اجرا برن.
Because of the huge failure and loss that we experienced during the past months, the theaters need to have the utmost capacity, use the utmost capacity of the box office, but it wasn't the case during the past the last month.
باعث شده که چند شکل جدیدتری از تئاتر در واقع آرتیست ها به چند شکل جدیدتری از تئاتر رو به اجرا کردن فکر بکنن، مثل اینکه در فضای باز در واقع تئاتری رو اجرا بکنن یا در واقع یک شکل جدیدتری مثل تئاتر ماشین که آدم ها توی ماشین بشینن و بتونن تئاتری که روبروشون اجرا میره رو ببینن و از طریق رادیوهای ماشین صدا رو بشنون.
So this situation has resulted in some newer forms of making theater, which one is outdoor theater. Some artists are thinking about having their shows outdoor, and the other thing is automobile theater, so that people sit in their own cars and they use the radio to hear what's going on. And watch the show. Yes.
Yes, Jaber, do you have anything else you want to add? No, but I wanted to say that we have been seeing this trend with the mobile theater. I saw one in Batam and in KL it's coming. We've seen some news about that. So I think that's one trend that's coming in post-COVID. It's happening here as well.
من خودم به اجراهایی که در واقع توی حوزه نت آرت داره اتفاق میفته فعلا نمیتونم بهشون لقب تئاتر رو بدم. من به اونها لقب لایو اینستاگرام یا لایو فیسبوک رو فقط میدم و اونها توی این مرحله هستن.
Jaber cannot call these kind of net theaters, net arts theater yet. He only can only call them live, Instagram Live or Facebook Live.
Thank you. I really like that because I'm old school and old fashioned. For the time being, it's okay to have all these temporary affairs, but let's get back to real theater. Razif,
yeah, that's the ultimate best.
Your take on Malaysia, and maybe you and Nia can have a chat about this situation here in Malaysia.
Well, there's two parts. I mean, like, first of all, we already had our first theater show, and the way we dealt with it, we had something called The Pandemic is Mightier Than the Sword. And it was a tongue-in-cheek play, but what we did was we took all the elements of social distancing, we put it into the play, and we highlighted in our marketing that you guys are going to be doing social distancing like crazy, and they really did. And it was kind of silly, and but at the end of the day, it was kind of cool. We kept the numbers to very little, so there's absolutely no chance of making money. And then again, if you look around at places like KL Pack, our Kuala Lumpur Performing Arts Center, one of the biggest ones, they've already had a play. They did a 10-bill play, if I'm not mistaken, or is it a 5-bill play? Sorry. It was a 5-bill play. What I heard was, because I didn't go for that one, but what I heard was that they really distanced the seats, and therefore, again, my question is, how is it that we're going to be making enough money to pay the rental of the space and you know, the actors, etc., etc. But I've heard a lot of other initiatives as well as to how people are dealing with this, and you know, it's all about how you're going to mix things up online. I'm quite excited to see how it works, but so far that's all I know about the Malaysian theatre scene. when it comes to theatre, honestly. There's not much going on, honestly.
You know, it's hard enough to fill up the seats before the COVID.
Yes,
Now with the
exactly.
COVID, it's like, but I like the idea that we've been, you know, Darwin said this, it's not the strong that survive, it's those that adapt best. So it's about adapting and using whatever's out there. But I'm with Jaber, and this is not theatre, this is a temporary situation. Let's go back to original. Yeah? Okay, our third question would be, what's post-COVID? What have you got plans? I mean, you know, Gavin, I was reading about you and your opera productions and your productions outside Ireland. Tell us what you have.
Yeah, so we have a few plans. Most of them I have here covered up on my wall. So behind these white sheets, there are lots of plans and unplanned. So I hope to go with those. But our next, we have we might be going to Germany, which will be the first time we've gone abroad this year. We're going to do an experiment in Dusseldorf in mid-September, if we're allowed travel. We're just waiting for the quarantine rules to be set in terms of Ireland, because we share a border with the UK. And we're going to do a piece, an outdoor piece in the parks in Dusseldorf. So hopefully this will go ahead. We're going to decide about 4 weeks before whether it will go ahead, but hopefully it will. And the piece is called Cascando, and it's a piece that's partly text, partly music, and the audience experience it by individual headphones, and then we go on this sort of journey together with the audience. It takes about 35 minutes, and we can do 25 people. So we'll do 3 times a day. And then afterwards, then we'll drink lots of German beer, I hope, you know. We're looking forward to doing that. And then we have this project I was saying earlier, which is poetry in the cinema. So we have kind of recorded a lot of the poems of Samuel Beckett. And we've made this kind of mood poem, which is part light and images, abstract images. And you experience the poetry in the cinema in Dolby 5.1. So when you go to a cinema, you're going to have the benefit of having a comfortable seat, socially distant, and then you'll hear this poetry, and then you'll watch the light, almost like color therapy, the light changes and you feel the vibration. So it's kind of very meditative. Also, the poetry is quite existential. So I think it's very strong. I think it connects to a lot of our deeper feelings that we're having now. And it seems to have the right hit. It's not light, it's quite a heavy piece, but I think people will enjoy the seriousness and the profundity of the poetry. Somehow the poetry seems to kind of be a good way to connect at the moment, you know, something that like a higher aesthetic perhaps. So we're doing that project, and then we're trying to do a live show, a proper live show, and it's quite difficult. We're going to start rehearsals the end of this month. We're going to do 3 days rehearsals. We have been doing some Zoom rehearsals once a week, but it's very difficult. And then we're going to go into a space and just see how we can make this a socially distant show. Our plan is to take all the seats out of the large theater to make this big open space that maybe is 20 meters by 14 meters. And then we will have all the audience on stage with us, all in a socially, we can fit maybe 40 people. And we'll have 3 or 4 actors who will also be at a distance. And we're going to make this inclusive show, which will acknowledge COVID-19 restrictions. Everybody will queue in and queue out, and we'll talk about, at the beginning of the show, we'll talk about the experience of COVID. And then we're going to make this show, which is based on a novel, and we're all going to kind of be together to make this performance. But again, it's an experiment. We're prepared to cancel it. So again, we haven't contracted everyone yet. Our idea is to develop it, and then at the last minute, then we'll decide to go with the show. Our problem is it can be cancelled because of any surge in COVID, or indeed the venue might say, sorry, we're not allowing any audience to come into the building. So all these plans are almost like theoretical. It feels like you're just sort of making up imaginary projects and getting them ready in a stack, waiting for it to unleash them. So, but the big issue for us is what to do next year, because it's very hard to make any plans with venues or partners or festivals. Everyone's waiting. And the other problem is some festivals and venues want maybe do the program they were supposed to do this year, next year. So there's going to be a huge bottleneck of projects. And our biggest fear is there'll be very few platforms to perform the work, because there's going to be twice as much product, twice as much of productions trying to go to the same amount of venues. So it's all very strange. So what we found is that we have decided not to think too far ahead, but try to kind of think about like, what will we do this week and what will we do next week? And then maybe have a few plans, but try and keep ourselves productive. And if you plan too far, I think it gives you a bit of a headache, and I think you can feel quite disillusioned, because once you make one step, it seems you create 30 new steps. So it's been very strange. But we've also done some of our international mentorship programs online. That's been successful. We have a mentor from New York, Kelly Copper, who works for a company called the Nature Theatre of Oklahoma, based in New York. And she has been working with Irish artists on a one-on-one basis, developing their projects. So that we could continue that online, and we've got a series of episodes that involve the public. But so far, yeah, we've been sort of just trying to research different ways of doing theatre, but we really want to do this indoor theatre piece with all the seats taken out. But we just have to, I don't know, make plans and be prepared to unplan. So it's just, that's kind of where we're at, really.
Really good. That's a logical Irishman. Plan and unplan and be ready. That, it's like Darwin said. Now you want to ask Jaber? Jaber, you next. What's your plan post-COVID?
Yeah, you know, توی گروه سوراخ تو دیوار در واقع ما خب هیچ وقت که کار ما تعطیل نبوده و در این دوران هم تعطیل نبوده، نخواهد بود.
We didn't have a single day off in our group, the Hole in the Wall Theatre, and we are never having a day off.
اما این اتفاق باعث شد که یه کمی پروژه هامون رو که متوقف شدن، وقتی متوقف شدن بایستیم و به چند سوال ساده مهم فکر بکنیم.
But this situation resulted in a stoppage, and we halted and pondered about a couple of things.
سوال ساده مهم این که چرا تئاتر کار میکنیم؟
This is a simple question of why are we working in the theater?
به نظر میرسه که تئاتر قرار نبوده که یک ماشینی باشه که عادتها و حرکتها رو تکرار کنه و باعث بازتولید کلیشه ها بشه.
The theater was not supposed to be like a machinery which makes and remakes cliches and repeats itself.
به دنبال دگرگونی بوده همیشه.
Theater has been always looking for making changes, making differences and metamorphosis.
به دنبال یه دنیایی که روی گفتگو با مخاطباش، یه گفتگوی دو طرفه با مخاطبا تکیه بزنه.
It has been in search of making a world which relies on a two-way discussion and dialogue between the maker and the audience.
در واقع ما همیشه تو تا دنبال شرح یه چیزی بودیم که اون چیزهایی که هیچ وقت نمیشه شرحشون داد.
In fact, we have been trying to explain things which are inexplicable.
درسته که در این زمان به خصوص همه ما احساس درماندگی میکنیم در این ماجرا.
Although all of us are feeling trapped and being useless, but
نگران و مضطرب هستیم.
We are worried and anxious.
به خاطر اینکه برج‌ها و دیوارهایی که تا الان میتونستیم میساختیمشون، حالا فهمیدیم که هیچ توانایی در برابر حفاظت از ما ندارن.
Because all the castles and walls that we have been building around us, we just came to the point to realize that they cannot guard us.
و نکته مهمتر این که فهمیدیم که ما داریم از مشکلاتی فرار میکنیم که در واقع این مشکلات به دست خود ما ساخته شدن.
And the most important thing is that we are just trying to escape the problems that we have been making up.
آره ما در گروه سوراخ رو دیوار در واقع یک کمی از این اختلال به وجود اومده استفاده کردیم تا به این سوال فکر کنیم که چرا داریم تئاتر کار میکنیم.
In our group, the Hole in the Wall Theater, we use this opportunity to rethink the question, why are we working and making theater?
در حال حاضر من خودم روی 2 تا اثر از فرانس سافر کروتز کار میکنم، نوشته‌نویس آلمانی.
At the moment, he's working on 2 plays by Kreutz, the German playwright.
و نکته مهم در واقع توی کارهای کروتز اینه که شخصیت‌ها زیر فشار اقتصادی بزرگی قرار دارن توی نمایشنامه.
The significant thing about Kreutz's work is that the characters in the play are under heavy financial pressure.
و موتور محرک نمایشنامه در واقع فشارهای اقتصادیه.
And the generative motor of the play are the financial pressures.
این در واقع خط و وصلیه که این نمایشنامه رو برای من به دنیای امروز و امروزیش میکنه، وصلش میکنه.
It is the thing that links the play to today's situation.
پول و کار در واقع هویت آدم‌ها رو در حال حاضر دارن معنی میدن.
Money and job are giving man their identity.
و در واقع شما بدون پول یک آدم بدون هویت هستید.
And in fact, without money, you have got no identity.
این در واقع کار جدیدیه که ما به واسطه این فکر کردن ها توی سوراخ رو دیوار داریم روی این پروژه جدید کار میکنیم.
Yeah, this is our new project which happened to us because of the new COVID situation, and just trying to give answer to the question.
Really looking forward to it, because in both the works that you brought to Penang, they were so deep, but at the same time so beautifully illustrated, beautifully visuals. I wonder how he's going to do the visuals this time. I thought it was really clever, both the shows. Yeah. So, Nia and Razif, take up next one.
Yeah, I like the fact that we are taking something negative into positive. So COVID is something that is negative that hits us like all of a sudden, and we are gasping for air. But a lot of people manage to turn that into inspiration, and like what you did, Razif, I like the fact that you turned that into a play. And can you maybe share with us from that experience, what have you learned, and maybe you can share with us what else that you plan to do or to try? I know in terms of making profit, it's quite hard because we cannot really, feel in the space yet. And we are not sure whether people are ready to go out, because right now we can go out. Malaysia has been doing well statistically, right? However, when I go out, I still have this anxiety. I still don't feel comfortable to just go anywhere, like even though we are following the SOP and all, but that has to change the way people look at theater and the audience, whether they want to go or not.
I agree.
So what else do you plan to try and maybe move forward?
Okay, so I'll tell you what we did and what we've planned. So miraculously for us, we've already booked 3 shows in a row. I mean, basically, we're going to be running 3 shows starting from next month and the month after and the month after, simply because the backlog of when we started, as soon as we were going to start our journey into theater, into building this new theater company, COVID hit us. So we took those shows and we finally managed to book it back. The beauty of it is this. Right now, and I'll be very open and frank, the SOPs, the standard operating procedures of restaurants are not the same of that of entertainment houses, i.e. theaters, i.e. cinemas, etc. Restaurants have been working a lot more, and they really know what they're doing, and therefore yes, it's still stringent, but there is a bit more of a lax that allows you to adapt your theater, for example, which is why we work with kitchens, with restaurants. It's like, we know that you're allowed to do this, restaurants, which is slightly better condition than how the theater houses are and how the cinemas are. We will try to adapt our show to that, and therefore it gives us a lot of breathing space. So I would say there are a lot of other venues as well that are, not to say that they don't, practice, strict SOPs. It's just that because they've been open a lot more, they've been open a lot longer. They've already been following the new norm ever since they started slowly releasing the movement control order. They've got their game down pat. Maybe we will be exploring in creating theater in more of those spaces, as we already are. The next 3 shows are actually set in restaurants. I have to say, I completely agree though that I think everyone hit the nail on the head. One of the things that we're scared about as well is how to get people out and how to get people to actually come. Now, interestingly, in Malaysia, and I'm not sure whether you know, Gavin or Jaber, Malaysia is all about food. Like, people will do anything for food, long distance for food. Food is pretty much everything. So I guess what we intend to do a bit more is to really focus on how we can include theater and include experiences with a commodity, i.e. the food itself. Maybe we should refocus on the business model or the way we market things from actually selling theater art show. Yes, that has to be the heart of it for us because we are theater makers in a way, first and foremost. But here in Malaysia, I think it becomes a lot easier when we peg it to that commodity. And it could not, maybe it's not just that. Maybe if you buy clothes, for example, we're exploring with the idea that if we work with a clothing company, if you buy the clothes, buy a set of clothes, and then you come to pick it up here, and then the theater happens where you actually have to wear your clothes and experience something with the clothes that you just bought, for example. So pegging it to a commodity, I see, is one way to get people out, because buying clothes and eating is much more of a necessity to do than it is to actually just go out and watch a piece of theatrical show. And that's what I see happening, and that's how me and my team are trying to explore towards the future.
It's very interesting, actually.
Interesting,
Jaber, your last play that you did here, we cannot talk about it, was a banquet table of food that was thrown all over the place. I don't know. Yeah, I like the idea that you're trying and adapting and all that. But I saw that picture of the opera house with plants inside. It's going to be very difficult to perform in non-conventional, quiet spaces, not quiet places. Anyway, let me explain Mia's group that has joined us for this today. They're called Terang. It's an initiative to connect the theater and performing arts practitioners around the world, and a group of young people who are trying to do it online. There's some questions sent out by Jihan and Tok Rimau. I'm just going to read it out so that if one of you can pick up the questions each maybe. How does the current situation affect collaborative effort? Maybe Gavin, you can take that quickly. And then the next one would be, it's about technology, and what Nia wanted to ask was how has technology, or how can technology be a tool? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, in terms of collaboration, it's been quite difficult. It's quite frustrating. Normally, you can get into a room and you can sort things out. You can communicate. You don't just communicate through words, but you obviously communicate through your body language, to your emotion, to the feel. So it's quite strange to always have to collaborate on Zoom or collaborate using one of these devices. Somehow you don't get to ask all the questions, or it's very hard to reach a conclusion. So collaboration has been difficult. So we're trying to see if we can collaborate on productions over several months, meeting less. So meeting 2 or 3 times a week or twice a week, instead of meeting for 4 weeks for 8 hours a day. If we were rehearsing, we're trying to do if we can extend the process and do it that way. That way we can, so that people can meet safely and the collaboration is longer. So we're trying to think of collaboration in terms of taking our time. If we take our time, it will be a better collaboration. In terms of collaboration with international partners from a producing point of view, that's been very difficult. We've had to sort of think about, with our company Pan Pan, half of our work is international. And the last 5 years, we love to work with international partners making work in the country. So for example, we just made a show in Melbourne last year. We were hoping to also make another show in Melbourne, which won't happen obviously next year. And we've made shows in China, made shows in Germany. And we really like to do this, not just to bring shows to a country, but actually work on the ground and have a kind of lasting legacy. And it's a great challenge because the performing arts is so collaborative. It's a great challenge to see if you can start again, meet new people, and figure out how we're going to work together. So we really like this process of making work. So we're going to have to try and work more in Ireland, and probably work in much smaller communities, in smaller towns, smaller festivals, and in order to have that same impact. But certainly we really miss the international aspect of the collaboration, and I'm not sure when that's going to happen, re-happen. But it's certainly the technology just doesn't replace the feeling of being in a room, the energy of being in a room together, which is kind of what theatre is, I guess.
Yeah, you want to ask your technology question to Jaber?
Yeah, Jaber, what do you think about digitalizing everything? Because when COVID hit, and then I see the trend of everyone trying to go online and try to reach out and try to collaborate online, and everyone was quickly looking at, you know, the virtual way of doing things. But we all know, I think we all can agree, the fact that theater should, I mean, the best way to do it is, you know, face to face, because for example, for performers themselves, we feed off the energy from the audience, and then that's the whole beauty of it. But do you think we need to adapt because the world is changing anyway? So, but if we are to adapt, how? Jaber.
به نظرم میرسه که در واقع برای آرتیست هایی که کار تک نفره رو دوست دارن، اساساً به بیس نت آرت در همه حوزه ها میتونه بسیار اتفاق خوبی باشه.
Apparently for those who are interested in solo shows, net art can be something interesting.
به دلیل اینکه در واقع ما باید در واقع توی اون به عنوان یک مدیوم تازه با ظرفیت‌های تازه بهش نگاه بکنیم.
Because we need to consider net art as a new media, medium with new capacities and possibilities.
در واقع اونجا جاییه که میشه اتفاقای تازه‌ای رو رقم زد، اما تلاش برای این که تئاتر یا هر گونه اتفاق دیگه‌ای رو ما به این مدیوم بیاریم، تلاش رو به شکستیه. اونجا یک جای جدیده با پتانسیل‌های کاملا جدیدی که کارهای شگفت‌انگیزی میشه توش انجام داد.
Net art is an awesome place and it brings about lots of possibilities. But trying to push art into that new medium might lead to a failure.
مسئله
مخاطب
در واقع این مدیوم جدید یک مسئله کاملا قابل بررسیه. مخاطبانی که همزمان که به صورت مجازی حضور دارن، همزمان حضور ندارن، همزمان میتونن در هر لحظه‌ای اونجا رو ترک بکنن، کاملا قابل بررسیه و باید برای اون مدیوم در واقع طراحی خاص صورت بگیره.
We need to study this medium so deeply and thoroughly because although the audience is present there, but he or she is just free to go and leave whenever she or he feels like.
آره، و مشخصا در واقع این مدیوم به زودی همونطوری که حرکت خودش رو از سالهای قبل شروع کرده و مربوط به امسال نمیشه، مشخصا مسیر هر روز هم در واقع جایگاه خودش رو بیشتر پیدا میکنه.
This medium has been started a few years ago, and it is going its way even today, and it's going to find its new stance sooner or
همونطوری که
later.
مشخصه که توی حوزه پزشکی در واقع متخصصان تغذیه در واقع هر روزی که میگذره کارشون مهمتر میشه.
It's like the medicine, which nutritionists are getting more and more attention and importance every day.
Well, I like your direction, Jaber. I think being an old fool, I think you should go back. Razif, your take on technology and where it's going to lead us.
Yeah, you have experience as well, right? So let's talk about that and let's hear it.
Well, I mean, when it comes to technology, I actually, personally, I'm also old school, like Joe, like Gavin, like Jaber. I think Jaber, sorry. I really think that it needs to be, theater must be done in the space. That's the only place you can get the energy, you can feel them, etc., etc. But so what we're doing to explore this is nothing new. It's been done before. It's where two countries sort of like stream together just for a moment of the performance. And yeah, while that's not new, what we're trying to do is we're trying to put the same play on, which is the one that we did recently, The Pandemic is Mightier Than the Sword. We'll put one happening here in KL, one more in London, and while it's in the park and we can accept maybe about 30 to 50 people with good social distancing, we're actually sharing the revenue of it. So in a way, we can even just do one where I'm at and then one down the road and one down the road, and everybody just does the same play. And then at one point we meet, but that's it. That's the whole company doing one movement in an entire bunch of spaces. But that, you know, what technology allows you to do is it allows you to have more people in a space without them actually being in the same space, but experiencing roughly the same thing, slightly altered with different directors and different people who have to adapt the play to their entire space. That's one thing. The second thing is also it's how we're working. So I've been working a lot with entrepreneurs, and most of them are in tech. And basically what I teach them is pitching and how to you know, sort of like give themselves confidence in order for them to sell their products and things like that. One of the most important things is how they use technology. And what I feel in the theater these days is that we lack stories that actually connect to their realities. You know, a lot of the stuff that we watch is still very old school, it's still very art. We're trying to preserve a lot of things. We're not trying, we don't see many people, and not that there's none, but a lot of people break out into like stories about full-blown entrepreneur. I've not seen the story of Steve Jobs done in a theatrical way. You know, it's been done in movies, of course, but what is the real human condition? And those are things that we can discuss and explore in theater. I think going towards other industries and exploring their technology and how it affects their human nature is something that we as theater makers can really, you know, dive ourselves into, find an image, find a story, and slowly bring that out. And maybe it would create for new markets, because I'll tell you what, in KL, I've never been able to entice the coders. You know, I've never been able to entice tech people to want to come watch theater. If they did, they probably had the exposure when they were young, or you know, their girlfriend happens to like theater. But other than that, it's not because they don't like it. I think it's because we're not making stories that interest them, and that's how we should use technology to dive ourselves into, absorb the story, tell it to them.
Well, I agree with that. I do understand that technology is here to stay, and we have to use it as a tool. We have only like maybe 7 minutes left. I want to finish up with one last question for everyone, right? I don't know, I'd like to think that you enjoyed yourself in Penang. Did you enjoy yourself in Penang? Would you come back and work with us? And Gavin, I would really like to look into the Playboy of the Western world, or another project we can collaborate, and Jaber too, and Razif. So did you enjoy Penang, and would you come back and help us? It's a little lovely island with lots of food, Razif. You can eat anything that you want here, and durians. Okay.
No, we had a great time in Penang when we came over. Obviously, we did the show all that fall in the Majestic Theatre, and Joe was kind enough to offer us 3 electrical generators so we could run all the lights. So it was like having these big noisy machines outside the theatre, and it's a beautiful space. I think it was an Art Deco cinema, wasn't it originally? And I think it was just being refurbished. The paint was literally wet when we walked in, and I think we were the first show in. But it was a beautiful space. But Penang was great. I mean, especially the nightlife and the eating, but also there was such a relaxed atmosphere, and the audience was really great. And we had beside the theater there was a mosque, so we had the call to prayer as part of our show, which really was beautiful. So in between this Beckett radio play, we had the call to prayer, which I thought was really special. And yeah, it was a very amazing experience. We'd love to come back. I'd love to come back with a number of projects, either to bring something or else maybe to work with the local artists. So yes, count me in.
Yes, thank you. Jaber, you've been here twice, both stunning productions, really strong messages, more relevant of an Iranian psyche. But would you like to come back? Did you enjoy yourself and would you work with us again?
خب باید بگم که آره ما در واقع حتما که دوست داریم که برگردیم به اون جزیره زیبا. به نظرم میرسه که پیننگ، جزیره پیننگ با مدیریت خوب تو جویی در واقع به یک جزیره فرهنگی تبدیل شده و تونسته که این برندینگ رو این برندینگ موفق رو برای این جزیره با جشنواره موفقی که این چند سال مدیریت کردی بسازی.
Yeah, we of course love to come back to your very beautiful island, and I think because of your directorship, strong directorship and management, you had turned that beautiful island into a cultural hub.
Thank you.
Agreed.
برندینگ تو در مورد با این جشنواره تونسته این جزیره رو به عنوان یک جزیره فرهنگی معرفی بکنه.
And you did a cultural branding for the island, and you had made it into a cultural brand with the festival.
و همینطور این جشنواره رو داره تبدیل میکنه به یکی از جشنواره‌های مهم آسیای شرقی.
And it is making this festival into one of the most significant festivals in the Eastern Asia.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. Come back.
من یکی از در واقع بهترین شب‌های زندگیمو با چند تا از دوستام که در واقع دوستای گروه هم در اون جزیره یکی از بهترین شب‌های زندگی و خاطر انگیزترینمون رو اونجا سپری کردیم و هیچ وقت اون شب رو یادمون نمیره.
I had one of my most memorable nights in my lifetime with my friends over there, and I cannot forget that memorable night.
و امیدوارم هر چه زودتر انشاءالله برگردیم و اینها و حالا من and sorry Mohsen, I have a question about for you, Joy. What's your plan for the next year about the Georgetown? Did you have any plan?
I'm no longer running the Georgetown Festival, but I'm working on a new project called Festival of Asia. It's basically putting a very strong Asian narrative. It has to be inclusive. It doesn't mean that it's an Asian narrative only for Asians. Like I spoke to Sidi Labi about producing something with an Asian narrative. Or Gavin, it's nowhere in the world would I see the festival that puts Asia on top, except for Ausasia in Melbourne, Ausasia in Adelaide, and Asia Topa in Melbourne. So I wanted to put together the best of Asian work or Asian storytelling and narrative. Just to let you know that Penang, for the last 2,000 years, have been the center of the trade between East and West of Asia. We were selling elephants to India. So Jaber, I will be in touch with you to talk about other projects that I'm doing, and inshallah, we'll be working together. But Razif and Nia, I'm going to direct the last question to both of you, because in the course of this evening, you've spoken about young people, young energy. Change the 62-year-old man to understand how we need to get young people into the theater. Now, I would love for you to come back, Razif, and Nia and your Terang people. That one reason why I really like to work with the people from Terang. It's because the world is changing. The world is yours. And I'm willing to learn and listen, but different. I don't want to put it all together into one cake. I want to have two cakes. Okay? So, will you come back, President? and work with us and teach this old man how new tricks?
No, I don't think there's much. I think there's more I can learn from you than
Yeah, definitely.
yeah. But of course, I would love to come back. I mean, like doing Pearl of the Eastern and Oriental was one of the best unforgettable experiences of my life. You know, I really have to thank Keng Hua, Yubeng, and everyone who had me on board, and yourself, of course, for giving us such a wonderful time over there. I would love to start exploring, stories of my own, developing things, and not just in the capacity of a performer, because I've always, I've been going to Penang ever since I was a kid. I'm Malaysian. My grandmother is from Penang. My wife is from Penang, and so Penang is a very strong thing for me, and I've just not been able to tap into the stories and actually be able to tell them, because I've always been doing it in KL. So given the chance, yes, of course.
Bagus. And Terang, yeah, we got to wrap up. So tell us, would Terang be interested in working with us in Penang, helping change this?
Of course. We did have a plan, like when we were much more optimistic before, when we said, COVID will be over like before 2020, and we can have a real festival after this. That was in the talk, but then now the reality hits, and maybe we were not very sure about that. But if there's any opportunity to do that, we will jump on it like in a heartbeat, definitely. And thank you so much, Joe, for having us. And I know you keep saying that we are younger. Basically, we actually learn a lot from you. And I need to talk about. I need to give the disclaimer. I am with you all. I believe that theaters should be in the space, but it's just that maybe we need to learn and move forward as well. But I still believe strongly in my heart that if we can, we still have to do it in like the previous ways. Like that's the best. Like it's the beauty of it.
Thank you.
Yeah, but thank you so much for having Terang and
thank you, Terang,
working with us.
Wanted to join us. But yeah, no anger, no ego, no fear. Don't fear the COVID. Let's be strong. For all of us, let's just be strong. Let's just think and adapt and change, and we'll work towards a better life, better world. Yeah. Thank you so much, everyone. It's been a great pleasure. Please keep in touch. Really, food, Penang, spaces, the Muazzan call. Gavin, thank you for noticing that. This is so Penang. Yeah? Okay, thank you and have a great weekend. We'll see you all soon back in Penang, I hope. Yeah? Thank you and good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you. Bye.
Inshallah.